Welcome to a little overview of the just announced update 1.1 highlights. That said, yesterday was the day it's been announced. I don't know why Frontier just decided to release everything the day I absolutely am not at home. But here we are. Hello Park Managers. And there are some fantastic updates in here, I gotta say. Mainly for builders, but also a couple of gameplay related things. And news about the complexity meter, while I skip away that marriage music in the background, whatever that was. Now, I gotta admit, there is a lot in here I'm very happy to see, because these changes, and you'll see that, are very much down to one of the most obvious and, as I think, justified criticisms of the game, to hopefully see a much more improved game over the course of time. It is the first update. There has been, obviously, the announcement of the Kentrosaurus as a free family unit, as they call it. So we are going to get all base game dinosaurs throughout the entire 2026, which kind of confirms that we will receive updates over the course of 2026. They will every month release another dinosaur for free of charge, as they said, and alongside other stuff as well. So obviously, at some point, we are going to expect some paid DLCs, I assume. But very good news that they're actively going to be fixing some things. And, you know, there were a little of issues. I have actually said that in my review as well, specifically when it comes to UI things and so on. There were little quirks here and there, and we'll get to that. So let's first of all have a look at the Kentrosaurus. That is the first look at a baby Kentrosaurus here in the background. Oh my god, it looks so cute. And it just also kind of from its body posture looks so interesting. And also if you look to that one here in the front, you'll get that like very different head shape, and overall the entire body physics, that even the physicality is really different from the parent. Seems like not really fully developed. I'm kind of happy to see that this way. Now, it's all gonna be a full family unit. They will be breeding. They have everything in, so not really much to say about this. But it's super cool to not see only the female version, but also get the juvenile and male version of this dinosaur, which is completely new, to be honest. It's just not the returning dinosaur S1, but actually as 3 different specimens of the same species. That how you say that? Well, then we get into the changelog, and this is not the full changelog. These are the highlight changes. There is going to be a much improved changelog, and maybe you guys haven't been around for the, let's say, rough Planet Coaster 2 launch. The first couple of updates, the changelog was dramatic. I remember the first update when we got it a couple days earlier, they included a changelog, and that was literally like 6 pages, 6 full DIN A4 pages long, 1-line info about the changelogs, and every line was filled. That was huge, and there was a lot of big stuff actually in that changelog, which wasn't even said into the highlights. So we can assume that what we're going to look at is not even the full list of all the fixes coming. You can also see there's something hiding down here, the complexity meter. We'll get to that because it's a bit more complicated. It's a bit more complex, the complexity meter, my god. But let's go into that one. So we talked about Kentrosaurus, fine. We adjusted the navigation rules so that dinosaurs can travel beneath and around scenery items more freely. Finally, if you've seen my videos, you know that I've been kind of annoyed by the fact how little animals can move around despite kind of, you know, respecting the distance that you require for that. I mean, my kitchen with the raptors kind of worked, but it seems like these pieces were kind of gentle on it. But if you use rocks, for example, I don't know what is the cause, but these dinosaurs do hate rocks in the game at the moment. So hopefully they're going to fix that so that dinosaurs in these habitats where you use rocks, which is hilarious because rocks are one of the most used items to make natural habitats, well, look natural, I guess. And the more you use them, the traversable area or the overall kind of habitat area for them becomes so small. And as they have a huge requirement in the game, even with the traits for lesser requirements, they still have a humongous kind of, demand. This area that's taken away by scenery, which shouldn't be, is actually huge. So now a lot of your habitats that are actually enclosures that are too small will hopefully be big enough in the future without even you changing anything. I really do hope that. Now for me, I think one of the biggest, bestest changes, even though it's just a visual one, is the improvements on the LODs on PC. Added a very high setting to foliage detail, updated the very high quality preset to correctly use the very high settings for foliage and geo detail, and improved level of detail for feathered dinosaurs on lower spec hardware is also a very welcome addition. But specifically these two, and I've said that this was maybe my biggest gripes about the very, very good graphics of the game, but it just kind of doesn't work as much or shine as much if on, it doesn't even matter what kind of system, the LODs was so aggressive that, you know, it just kind of looked very odd from the distance. And I'm very, very happy to see that improved. Hopefully they really went in and gave us the option with very high, to be very high on high-end computers. You can still go back to the high settings, which is then effectively what we have right now, and it still looks gorgeous, but not as you would expect from a 2025 system capable of. So yeah. Then we have the added operation buildings limits and Sandbox getting allowed to players have multiple of the same buildings. So finally, multiple arriving points, which is great. So we don't have to build weird elements on different islands if we want to. Or we can also just have different entrances to our parks, which specifically in my JP988 project is very welcome indeed. I also have to say that this is one of these typical Frontier things that I'm happy it is in the 1.1, because I would have been a bit upset if not. This is one of the things we already had in both games at some point, so that was a bit of a weird choice to not integrate that right away. Whatever, I think that is just such a typical Frontier one to do. But then we have the revised Sandbox settings for preventing juveniles from being hunted in Sandbox maps, which is interesting because I thought it worked, but it's interesting to read that we can change the setting now. Then we have path and fence building modes now default replace mode off to off when opened. That is good, because I also figured a couple times that I was a bit, you know, struggling with the settings, and I was like, in all other menus your setting is reset to the default, but in this one it is not. It stays on replace mode on, which is annoying because you just want to build a path, you know, that isn't. Then we have got pylons can now be placed between islands and on maps with island generator, which is nice. Then we have an added guest food scattering animation for dinosaur encounter, which is always need to have. And then we also have the adjusted frequency of dinosaur present in dinosaur. This is also good. I figured that while I was building these things, that is super interesting, because I thought it was my fault, but I really figured that was way too seldom and looked so dull. So hopefully this is majorly improved with like a way higher frequency. That would be good. Then we have the edit group edit shortcut when playing with mouse. Double click a group to enter a group edit mode. Well, we had that for 8 years in the Planet games. Thankfully, this is coming in the first update. I would have been annoyed again if not. But yeah, I'm very happy to see a lot of the things that I had in my feedback email the very first days being actually done in here. I've seen that many people have had the same, so they are not like obviously exclusive to me, but very good to see that a lot of these quirks, and specifically to bring players that love to play different Planet games as well, more closer to this one. Because, and I jumped this one specifically, I kind of left that out because it fits better to this part, we also have added further keyboard shortcuts to in-game control hints when placing or moving scenery. That is good. I need to see how that pans out, but I hope that then we finally have like angle snap and all these kind of things. Also, hopefully we can realign the buttons as we wish, so we can finally have attached to align to surface and all these kind of things as hotkeys. That would be really cool as shortcuts, because that would make building so much more efficient. Now, the next thing we have is added a new help screen for alternative camera controls and foundation floor pieces. Interesting, whatever this help screen will be, but let's see. It seems to be helpful for building. And then we have added screen effect when time controls are open to clarify focus, gamepad only. Well, we see how that turns out. I didn't have that issue because I rarely play with, you know, the Wonderful, wonderful. I should say though, I received finally my influencer pack for Jurassic World Evolution 3. It's been a nightmare. It's nothing to do with Frontier. It's basically the German customs didn't let the package in, and we had a lot of communication for them to explain to them that this is not a real fossil. I'll eventually make a video about that. It was too hilarious. But yeah, sure. I mean, of course, I'll get a official Spinosaurus teeth via an influencer package. This is... Yeah, no, never mind. Yeah, created a new biome filter label for foliage scenery items. That is nice because people like to have the correct ones in the correct biome, and you couldn't filter that, which now you can. Very nice. Alongside the above, update 1.0 has an extensive list, as I said, in Planko 2. That really was extensive. Trust me on that one. It's just been hilarious. List of bug fixability improvements, various areas of the game. A full changelog will be available next week when the 1.1 goes live on all platforms, which is great to see. I'm hoping to have that maybe a little earlier to really deep dive into the changelog and then give you a good rundown on what exactly is changed, because let me tell you that in the latest Planet Coaster 2 updates, they had a lot of great things hidden in there, not even talking about. One of the things they didn't even talk about was the fact that they changed the steps of the angle snap from previously, just as in Jurassic World Evolution 3, which 15 degrees was the lowest we had. Now it went down to 1 degree, which they didn't even talk about. It just randomly was in the game, and everyone was super hyped about it. So yeah, that again is typically Frontier. Now also, complexity meter. Let me just not read all of this, because this is just basically justifying why it was in the first place. But now let's see what they do to fix it. So first of all, they have said there is a memory optimization to improve complexity meter limits on Sandbox and Challenge Park. Whatever that means, I guess they have raised the limits. It's a bit vague, isn't it? Yeah, so hopefully it's improved. Then we have a save game optimization to increase complexity meter limits on campaign levels, which I do think is kind of reducing the complexity when save the game by, I don't know, fixing some areas or so. Not entirely sure how that works, but good to see they do. And then performance optimizations to improve complexity meter limits on Dinosaur Intensive Park. I've seen that Reddit post where people were really going into detail how many dinosaurs do add how much percentage to the complexity meter, and that was very linear, if I remember correctly. So hopefully they fixed that, and if they did, because of the linearity, the saving performance will be quite big, I guess. But we also have a added an override performance limits option to the gameplay settings menu. And I think this is what everyone wanted. By the way, I'm also confused why this is via console only. Is the complexity meter also in the game? Like in the PC version? I have never seen it. So, I mean, I'm sure I would have crushed it. So I was confused. Maybe that's just like a bit of a formatting issue over here. But anyways, you can now opt in to go beyond the complexity meter however you want. I think this is exactly what people wanted. So it's all good what they're writing over here and really nice to have. But this is what people wanted. This is basically getting to computer settings, you know, just saying whatever, I don't care about the performance, let's go. And if FPS go down and I can still build, I'm fine with this, because I don't need 120 FPS on a dinosaur game, which totally would be fine. I also saw that this is not the case, having that many FPS anyways, but see, the point is, I'm very excited to see how that pans out, because I am always split on that topic, because I do think the way the Planet games and also now Jurassic World Evolution 3 with the piece-by-piece building is intended to be played, or let's say how it allows people to play, just kind of doesn't go along with the idea of a console. I have seen console players creating the most insane builds, which I love them for, and I do think those people should be rewarded by having the chance to also build crazy stuff like I did with the Halo ring or so. but like these are a couple of, and this I do say that in the most positive way possible, these are just freaks doing that on the controller, you know? That is just ridiculous. So for the majority of console players, I guess this is a game that doesn't even require to use all that complexity. However, with giving people access to the workshop, it just kind of lays that absurd thing I said down, because even though you don't build these things yourself, you love using them from the workshop, which is essentially the core of the workshop. So all in all, I'm very happy to see that they did give this free, but now we will be able to see what the performance really is on console. And I'm just hoping for everyone involved, and of course for the players, that the performance turns out to be much better than we would have expected it to be, and you can go really beyond the complexity meter without running into the last bullet point. If building continues with the overall returns, the setting may become inactive until the park's overall complexity is reduced again. I think I need to also clarify that sentence. For me personally, it sounds a bit odd. So if building continues with the override turned on, the setting may become inactive until the park's overall complexity is reduced again. I think this just means that when you keep on building and your park is over the limit, you cannot reset it to the state of limit turned on. You first of all have to delete the things to get below the level again. Which makes sense, I guess, but when you did opt in for it, there is a reason why you did that, right? So I guess you need a save before that, which is with the complex, and then you can revert to that state, I guess. Anyways, it sounded to me like if the lag becomes too big, then you get this becomes inactive. But the more I read this and the more I go through, I think it hasn't anything to do with the FPS. I think you can just crush your system if you want to. And this is just about the fact if you go beyond the limit, it's not going to be activated to you to let it deactivate. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, that being said, I think it's a very meaningful first update. Sure, it's not like the most content packed, if you will, but I think there are a couple of really good updates in here, and I'm very excited to see what they're fixing in the future. I know this is just like one side of the medal. A lot of people want to see major improvements also when it comes to dinosaur fights and dinosaur interactions, which I'm totally in, and I think there's a lot of potential left on the ground that I do hope they do touch very soon. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and if anyone is still watching after the news has been out for quite some while now, but it's just the way it is, I guess. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you up in the next one.